Sarah's Hollows, home to the Locust Horde. However, there is a looming enemy that threatens their very sanctuary, the Lambent, who knock on the very doorstep of the Locust's capital. Therefore, it is up to one grub that is willing to overstep their authority and inform the Queen of a far greater plan in order to save the Locust from extinction. We meet Bold RAAM. RAAM, not RAAM, started off like every other Locust, as a simple drone, the common foot soldier for the Horde. However, he proved that he was more intelligent than the other grubs, so he quickly improved to become a Theron guard. Even still, RAAM was more superior than the Therons, growing to a whopping 10 feet tall in height and showcasing his advanced tactics and strategies on the battlefield. He was promoted to Vold in no time, taking charge of the Blight known as the Bloody Vanguard. Within this platoon were a couple of notable characters, Vrol Jermod, who was an expert marksman who wielded the goated reach shot, and the main antagonist of Gears 2, Scourge. Scourge had the ability to see bits and pieces of the future through the consumption of emulsion fumes. However, this was seen as heresy by the other Cantus within the church, so instead of becoming a priest, he was sent to fight on the front line alongside RAAM, but RAAM took in Scourge with open arms, eventually creating a brotherly bond with him. The war with the Lambent had raged on for many countless years at this point, and RAAM noticed no progress was being made, so he thought of a better idea that could potentially save the Locust. Far above on the surface, another endless war, but it was the COG against the UIR. RAAM looked down upon the humans, fighting a petty war over something so trivial such as emulsion, whereas the Locusts were fighting emulsion its very self. Nonetheless, the humans of Sarah were ripe for the taking. The 79-year-long war had finally come to an end, so RAAM sought to take advantage of the COG while their guards were down. However, he had to first plead his case to the Queen. The war with the Lambent was long lost, but Uzo Sirach either didn't want to believe it or he didn't want to admit it. Sirach was the general of the Locust Horde at the time, but it was more so he was known for his pure brute strength than his actual war tactics. Standing at an even whoppinger 12 foot, RAAM had to first go through him in order to get to the Queen. But as stated earlier, Sirach didn't want to hear all that. Still, RAAM attempted to plead his case with the Uzo in hopes that the Queen would be listening in. Unfortunately, starting a war with the humans also meant that there would be two fronts to fight on. Sirach was hearing nothing out, so he gave RAAM that work. That man Scourge had to literally drag Homeboy out the room afterward. But RAAM was successful after all. The Queen was listening in on his plan. The seed was planted. In doing this, RAAM put a target on his back. The Uzo took this as an attempt to form a coup. So he sent a modified corpser made by head scientist Ukon to try and take out RAAM and his followers. Fortunately, thanks to his quick thinking, they were able to make light work of the corpser. RAAM had enough of all that bull jive. He devised a plan that would prove that the war was lost, so that the Queen would have no choice but to follow through with the invasion of the surface. He sent Scourge to speak with Keter Vrol, and RAAM himself went to recruit the help of Karn, the main antagonist of Gears Judgment. Karn was in charge of protecting the Hollow expansion. The Lambent tended to show up in small increments there. They were easy enough to handle so long as they didn't come in big packs. RAAM saw this as an opportunity. In order to win his war, Karn had to lose his. Jumping back to Scourge, we see that he was able to talk to Keter Vrol, one of the 4 higher-ups with a seat at the council. He was also the head of the Cantus priests and saw over the Church of the Trinity of Worms. Scourge tried his best to put in a good word for RAAM, but to no avail. That was until a horde of Lambent started to rush the church grounds. RAAM was successful in swaying Karn to abandon his post, so the Lambent had free access to rushing straight into the inner hollow. RAAM took this opportunity to save Keter Vrol and show him that the war had been lost. He also did this in an epic fashion. Bro wanted all the smoke, kicking names and taking asses. He had become the next Luca.
I'm him.
Now having gained the support of Keter Vrol, RAAM and company were able to have a meeting with the council, including the Queen herself. However, regardless of whatever RAAM had to say, Sirach still didn't want to hear any of it. But just when he was about to give RAAM that work again, Karn popped in. Covered in blood, he helped plead RAAM's case. The war was lost. It had been lost for a long time. Up until this point, Uzo Sirach was only feeding the queen information that he wanted to give her. But after now hearing this information from 3 Volds, she had heard enough. Right then and there, she appointed RAAM Uzo and demoted Sirach to Vold. RAAM was now the head general of the Locust Horde. Turns out Queen Mira was aware of what RAAM was doing for a while now. She just wanted to see the resolve he had in order to have an excuse to promote him. However, she made it loud and clear that no one, not even RAAM, could overthrow the queen. Nonetheless, RAAM now had access to the whole of the Locust Horde, alongside the go-ahead to set their sights on the unsuspecting humans of Seraph. The first thing he did was promote Karn to Zamiel, and allowed him to lead an army to take out Garaznia. If you remember, that is the UIR home turf. With the help of the modified corpsers granted by head scientist Ukon, Scourge and RAAM started what would go down in COG history as Emergence Day. But first, let's see this from the perspective of an unsuspecting COG soldier. Who better than someone from the infamous Carmine family, W. Carmine, or rather, Will Carmine. Oh man, never thought I'd see the day that this war would come to an end. It was a good run, but it's time to hang up old Bessie. Never will I touch another gun in my life.
What the hell? Oh my God, no way.
Jimmy, give me the goddamn gun! It's okay. Nothing bad ever happens to the Carmine family. I'll be bink chillin' by tomorrow.
That's what I thought you said. Now let me offer this as a rebuttal.
And with that, E-Day had officially begun. The Gears had no idea who or what this new enemy was, so RAAM and his forces made light work of them, tearing them up piece by piece and limb by limb. All was going well until boom! The former Uzo, Sirach, pulled up and wanted to get his get back. And yes, you guessed it, in blood. But thanks to Scourge's vision, RAAM was able to predict this and plan accordingly. Sirach's armor was as tough as a corpser's shell, but it wasn't immune to torque bow shots. With Sirach no longer having protection from his chest, RAAM ripped out his heart, marking an end to a former life of servitude and starting a new one of rule. Scourge had one last vision to tell RAAM, that he would not see the end of this war. He would die at some point before it was over, but RAAM knew this already. He just wanted to rip and tear every human he could possibly get his hands on before that day came. And with that being said, he told Scourge that he would be appointed the new Uzo upon his death. So thus began 14 years of rule and whooping on COG platoons left and right. As the years and battles continued, so did his prestige and reputation as a general grow. From handling up on the people of Ilima City and almost getting worked by Kim Young-min, to getting that back in blood years later. RAAM secured that his name would be written in all future COG history books. All that war, those battles won, the carnage that ensued, all of his victories, just to get ratioed by a daddy's boy and a Mexican. That's gonna be a wrap for this video, gang. Let me know what you guys think about RAAM's come up. Personally, he is my second favorite villain of Gears, second to Scourge of course. Perhaps he will be the focal point of a future video. Thank you all for the support coming from my last video. A simple like and comment goes a long way. Like always, let me know what y'all think of the video in the comments below. And subscribe today if you aren't already. Babbage out.